Hello my friends, it's Laura. I am here with a very special recommendation video. So I asked you guys on the community tab for what kind of recommendations you were looking for and you guys answered. So let's get into these recommendations specifically for you and what you want. So someone asked for an underwater / diving element in books, and this was a difficult one to come up with because I don't have like besides the obvious like mermaid books, right? I don't have a ton of recommendations for this. But first of all, going with the theme of mermaids, we have The Deep by River Solomon. This obviously has an underwater element because it's about mermaids. Specifically, this looks at the possibility of pregnant women thrown overboard during the transatlantic slave trade becoming mermaids and creating a society of mermaids underwater. And we're following a main character who is the one person that holds all of those painful memories for the entire group. It's such a good book. River Solomon's writing is impeccable, and I definitely recommend this one. It's nice and short, somewhat of a difficult read. But besides this, there is a book coming out soon that I think will scratch this itch for us. It is A Letter to the Luminous Deep by Sylvie Cathrall, and this comes out April 25th. The main character in this apparently has a underwater home, and that just sounds so perfect. And it's the correspondence of this main character with someone else. I think there's a bit of a romance, but a perfect underwater setting. So I think this could be something you're looking for, but you gotta wait until the 25th of April to read it. And then I also have Aquacorn Cove by Kay O'Neill, which is a graphic novel that is absolutely beautiful. Kay O'Neill's illustration style is just so cute and cottagecore and beautiful, stunning. So I definitely recommend this one. It has that kind of underwater element set in a seaside town where our main character discovers a colony of aquacorns, magical seahorses that live in a coral reef, and it's so sweet, it's so cute, it's a fast read. If you like graphic novels, definitely recommend. Okay, next, someone asked for a cozy standalone fantasy, and I have quite a few to recommend. I think it was Becky who asked for this recommendation, and I'm pretty sure, Becky, that you read Nettle and Bone already by T. Kingfisher, but I wanted to recommend it for everyone else who is looking for a cozy fantasy. T. Kingfisher is such a unique author because she can write a cozy fantasy that deals with like darker, more intense topics, but still has that light, fun, airy tone to it. And the way she does that is just so impressive. Nettle and Bone follows our main character, Mara, who is trying to save her sister from a very abusive, dangerous husband. And she goes on this little quest to do that. And along with her, she has a bone witch, a fairy godmother, a disgraced ex-knight, and a demon-possessed chicken. And like, if that doesn't sound like a cozy, fun, good time, I don't know what does. And it is a standalone, and it is a novella. It's pretty short. It is only, what, 240 pages? If you haven't read this yet, please do. It's so much fun. I absolutely love it. But the other cozy fantasy I have, standalone cozy fantasy I have to recommend, and you knew this was coming, is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, because this is one of my absolute favorite cozy fantasies of all time. Again, it's a bit of a quest adventure type story. Even though there are somewhat higher stakes, it still has that fun, light tone where you know everything's gonna work out okay in the end. It's such a unique world, like all of Sanderson's worlds are. It is inspired by The Princess Bride, which is like one of my ultimate cozy comfort movies, and the book was exactly the same for me. Just cozy, comforting, beautiful story. And then another Sanderson is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is a cozy fantasy romance. So beautiful. This book made me sob because it's just so beautiful. Again, incredibly unique world. We have somewhat of a interesting like body swap situation going on in this one, and characters that are so incredibly lovable that you would just lay down your life for them. So recommend both of these if you're looking for some good cozy fantasy. Then I also have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I know that this is a pretty popular one that a lot of us have read, but if any of you have not read it yet, please pick it up. It is about a witch who gets invited to go to this estate where there are 3 young witches that need to be taught magic. Very found family. It's very cozy. It's very romantic. The magic is beautiful. It's another one that made me tear up at the end. Incredibly lovable characters. The kids in here are hilarious. I just had a great time with it. And then I do have one more, which I feel like is one that I don't talk about a lot, but this is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This I would consider to be cozy fantasy. In this, we are following our main character, Isabel, who makes her living creating portraits for the Fae. And one day she gets commissioned by Rook, the Autumn Prince, and she paints very human emotions in his eyes, which is a big no-no. And so he like sweeps her away to stand trial in the fairy court for painting this portrait of him with human emotion. It's a romance. It is whimsical and magical and romantic, and I think it fits under the cozy fantasy category. I don't see a lot of people talking about this one when they talk about cozy fantasy, so I definitely wanted to give this a recommend. Okay, the next thing that was asked for. Someone asked for recommendations for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is actually in April, and I didn't exactly know what they were looking for, but I do want to recommend a book that I haven't talked about in a very long time, and that is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. This is a YA contemporary, somewhat hard-hitting. It does deal with the topic of sexual assault, and I think it's handled with so much care and done really well. This is a book that I definitely want to reread at some point. I just loved this. I loved what it had to say, and it's one that had me sobbing. Like absolutely sobbing. But I loved this, and I don't think I've ever talked about this on my channel, to be honest, so I was very happy to add this as a recommendation. Okay, the next one that I have a ton of books for, and I didn't realize that I had read so many that could fit into this category, but someone asked for Cottage Corp / cozy fantasy with animals and nature as a focus. And I have some recommendations for you. Start with This Poisoned Heart by Kaylin Bayron. This one is very much the epitome of Cottage Corp, in my opinion. Our main character, Bree, was that her name? Yes, Briseis. Bree has this plant magic where she is able to grow plants and flowers and trees, and she ends up inheriting this estate in Rochester, I think it is, somewhere upstate New York. And it has like a little apothecary that she ends up running, and it has a poison garden and a regular garden, and the grounds are so beautiful. It's very nature and flower focused, very Cottage Corp. I adored this. Plus it's just hilarious. Briseis's parents, especially like the whole family unit, she has 2 moms, and they are hilarious, both of them. Just the way they interact with each other. It's so beautiful. Oh man, just talking about this makes me want to reread it really soon. Like, it is the ultimate spring book as well. Spring Cottage Corp. Highly recommend this one. Another book I haven't talked about in ever is The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. This is the book that got me into reading Holly Black, and it's probably the one book from Holly Black that I enjoy the most. Like, this is my favorite from her. Set in the same world as the Cruel Prince series. I believe we even have a character, it's been so long since I've read this, but I believe we even have a character in here that's in the Cruel Prince series. We're following mostly humans who live close to the forest where the Fae dwell, and so they're very familiar with Fae and their mischievousness and the things they do. Yes, they live in Fairfold where humans and folk exist side by side. There is this boy, this horned boy, Fae boy, in a coffin, and he's kind of become like this tourist attraction. Like, people come there to see him, and there's so many stories surrounding him. Like, is he a prince? Will he ever wake up? Will a kiss wake him up? There's so many things. And then one day he does wake up, and it's that story. And I feel like anything with the Fae is very nature focused. It's kind of their nature to be in nature, and I wish I could say more about it, but honestly I don't remember a lot. I just know that this fits into the category. It's been forever since I've read it, and I'm probably due a reread pretty soon. Then we of course have The Tea Dragon Society, again by Kay O'Neill. This is one of the most adorable graphic novels you will ever read. It's super short. You can read it in like 15 minutes, but it is all about just caring for these little tea dragons. They're tiny little dragons that grow tea leaves on their heads. Like, they're so freaking adorable. And it's all about caring for them, but also caring for the environment. I feel like all of Kay O'Neill's graphic novels deal with taking care of our earth, taking care of the environment and conservation. And it's just beautiful and heartwarming and just the perfect spring nature-based read. Then we have another fae-based one, which is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, as well as Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands, which is the second book in the series. It's all about Emily Wilde studying the fae. Again, fae stories in my mind are always very like nature focused, and there's a lot of her like going into the forest and meeting with these fae, and it's just very cozy. So I definitely recommend these. I also have A Fragile Enchantment, which is one that I read recently and adored. This is one of my favorite books of the year, you guys. This is about a young woman named Neve who has this magic where she can weave emotions into clothing. She is a dressmaker, and she gets hired by the royal family to make the garments for the royal wedding, and she ends up having undeniable chemistry with the groom. So that causes a bit of drama, but what's really fun is that like the prince in here has this plant magic. He's very big on plants. That's his happy place. He has this little greenhouse that he spends time in, and he also has, when he is like bursting with emotion, it comes out magically through growing vines and plants. So I feel like this is very cozy, cottagecore, nature focused. It also has that like Regency era vibe with garden parties and just beautiful springtime events and picnics, and it fits the bill quite well. And then the last one I have to recommend is one that I don't own physically, but it is The Enchanted Hacienda. This is by, I didn't write down the author's name. Give me one second. J.C. Cervantes. This one is one that I really liked. I didn't love, but it could work better for you. This is kind of like half cozy fantasy, half romance. Definitely reminded me of Encanto because our main character comes from a whole family of magical women, magical people that have flower magic. Her family owns a flower farm in Mexico, but she is the only one in her family who doesn't have this magic. Full of flowers and working at the flower shop and on the farm. It has a sweet little romance and it's very cute. I liked it. Just blooming with nature. And then lastly, I have The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields, which is one I've read most recently and another one of my favorite books of the year so far. I love this category, you guys. I should say, if anyone has any more recommendations to add, please do so in the comments so we can find even more books. But The Honey Witch, oh my god. Oh my god. It is about this girl named Marigold who finds out that she is a witch and gets swept away by her grandmother to the island of Innisfree, where she is taught how to become the next Honey Witch. Her magic is directly related to nature and creation and bees, and she has the apiary with all of the bees that she talks to. She lives on this isolated island where there are land spirits and animals and flowers and gardening, and she has a little apothecary and she makes spells for people in the town, and it's just so cute. It's just so whimsical, cottagecore, springtime vibes, and very much nature focused, and I loved this. And there's also like a really beautiful hot romance in here as well, sapphic romance. Please, if you read nothing else, read The Honey Witch. Unfortunately, it doesn't come out until May. Please have this on your radar because it is just so good. Okay, that is everything I have for the cottagecore with animals and nature. Let's move on to enemies to lovers with strong, lovable characters. The first recommendation I have is definitely enemies to lovers. It's also a very complicated relationship, but also, do I consider these characters lovable? I mean, I love them, but they're not, maybe not the most lovable characters, but they're definitely very strong female characters. This is another sapphic book. The two lovers part pretty much comes in the second book, but in the first book we're dealing with enemies. We have Terrain, who was taken as a child by a nation who conquered her people to become like this child soldier. All she's known is this life as a soldier fighting for this empire who conquered her people. And then she gets the opportunity to go back to her homeland where her loyalties are now suddenly up in the air. And she meets Luca, who is the queen. Well, she's not the queen yet. She's the princess of this conquering nation. And she is really trying to get her throne back from her uncle, who is ruling as regent and is kind of refusing to give her the throne. The two of them end up working together for reasons, and they have this undeniable attraction to each other, but they are literally enemies. And the power dynamics in their relationship is a lot to deal with. So it's complicated, it's messy, it's full of drama, but it's so good. And they are very strong characters. Lovable is up for debate, but I had to recommend this one. A nice contemporary romance, we have Do Your Worst by Rosie Danan. In this, we're following an occult specialist who is a curse breaker, and we're also following a disgraced archaeologist. And they end up having to work at the same castle, Scottish castle. The problem is that once he finds out that she is a curse breaker, a paranormal expert, he tries to get her fired because he's like, the occult isn't real, she's a scammer, she's trying to take your money, like literally trying to get her fired. And so she is pissed, and they become instant enemies. And they're both trying to get the other one to like leave the job site. And so they're constantly picking at each other. But of course they're like so attracted to each other. So there's this sexual tension throughout the book. It's, oh my God. I loved this so much. It's so much fun. If you're looking for a contemporary enemies to lovers, this one works really well. And the characters are both very lovable characters. They're each dealing with their own things. Our main character Clark with his strained familial relationships, and our main character Riley with grief. You immediately fall for these characters right away. I think Clark is such like a soft cinnamon roll, which I love. Definitely recommend this one. Then we have A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne Brown, which is another one that I haven't talked about in a while. But the fun thing about this is that we have two main characters who are set to kill each other. So like, are they technically enemies? No. But they both need to kill each other for very important reasons. Our main character Malik has to kill our main character Karina in order to get his sister back from a very dangerous, powerful, supernatural entity, okay? And then Karina wants to kill Malik so that she can bring her mother back from the dead. So they are both on this collision course to kill each other, but they fall in love with each other, and it's a whole thing. And I loved this book so much. It's another one that I feel like I need to get to rereading. As far as lovable characters, both of them, but more so Malik, who is another sweet, soft cinnamon roll boy with anxiety that you will want to protect at all costs. So adorable. He is so amazing. I love him with my whole heart. So I had to recommend this one. And then we have, ooh, okay, my books are falling. Then we have One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. We have two warring witch families, Baba Yaga and her daughters, and then we have Koschei the Deathless and his sons. And we have sort of like a Romeo and Juliet thing going on with these enemies. There's two different sets, two different romances that play out in here. The second one is the one that I love the most. They meet not knowing they're enemies, and then they find out they're enemies. But what are they gonna do because they're falling for each other? And as far as lovable characters, Lev is another, can you tell that I like have a soft spot for soft cinnamon roll boys? Because Lev is another one. He is so sweet and soft and romantic, while our main character is very fierce and strong. And I love that combination so much. But yeah, this one, it's so good. Definitely read that. And then I have one more, and that is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. So this is another contemporary enemies to lovers. We have two characters who used to be best friends in the past, but then something happened, which we find out about, and they are now enemies. Like, she calls him her nemesis. For reasons, they end up having to spend some time together, and things happen, and it's so good. It's so adorable. It truly, truly is, and it's hilarious. I love the banter in here. If you love good banter, you'll absolutely love this. Talia Hibbert is a master at the banter, so recommend that one as well. Okay, moving on. Someone asked for a cozy mystery recommendation. I have 3 for you. The first one is Crime and Poetry by Amanda Flower. This one was super cute. I ended up not enjoying the rest of the series, but this first book was so good for me. As part of the Magical Bookshop Mystery Series, it takes place in a magical bookshop. Like, what else do you need to know? A magical bookshop where the perfect book tends to fly off the shelf and pick you, literally. Then a dead man is discovered clutching a volume of Emily Dickinson's poems from Grandma Daisy's shop. Grandma Daisy is now the prime suspect, and so our main character has to solve the case. It's got that little bit of magic to it. There's a cat. Like, it's an all-around good time. But the other 2 that I enjoyed even more, the first one we have Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. This is a like foodie cozy mystery, which I love. We're following Lila, who moves back home to recover from a horrible breakup. She starts working in her Tita Rosie's restaurant. I believe it's her ex-boyfriend ends up dying after eating at the restaurant, and so her and her family are the main suspects, and so to clear her family's name, she decides to take up the case and do some investigating. It's really fun. If you like, this will make you hungry. If you love food, if you're a foodie, definitely recommend this one. And then of course I had to recommend my favorite cozy mystery of all time, which is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This one follows Vera Wong, who is a meddling auntie, okay? She is a lonely little old lady who finds a dead body on her tea shop floor one morning, calls the police, is not satisfied with the way the police are handling the case, so she decides to take up the case herself. She literally gathers all of her suspects together and tells them, okay, we're gonna see who murdered this guy. And like, it turns into this beautiful found family type story. It's so good. It's so good. It's one of my absolute favorites of ever. So highly recommend this one. Okay, my battery's flashing. Let me change that real quick and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back, but everything looks orange and I don't know why. Does that help? Okay. That was weird. Anyway, next we have someone who is looking for circus slash carnival slash clown elements in books. They mentioned that they've read all of the really popular ones, so I'm guessing like The Night Circus and Caraval you've already read. I do have some more out of the way recommendations that maybe you haven't read. The first one is Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody. This follows 16-year-old Serena, who works and lives within the Gomorrah Festival, which is this traveling circus city. She has a particular kind of magic. I think is it shadow magic? She can create illusion that others can see, feel, and touch with personalities of all of their own. That's right. Okay, it's all coming back to me now. And her creations are her family. This one was really cool. I really liked it. This came out back in 2017, so maybe you might have missed it, but it does have that circus element and it's actually a really fun read. It has like a central mystery throughout it. I think there's a bit of a romance. It's YA, so there's probably a bit of a romance, and I really liked it when I read it. I think I gave it like 4 stars. I also wanted to recommend Circus Mirandus. This book is so beautiful. It's one that I don't hear a lot about. It is an older book as well. Like, it came out in 2015, so it's a bit older. It is a middle grade and it deals with grief, so keep that in mind. We have a young boy whose grandpa is dying. His grandpa has always told him about the circus called Circus Mirandus and about the real magic that is in the circus. And so he believes that if he can get to the circus and find this particular magician, that this magician will save his grandpa. It's, oh my god, this made me bawl. I cried hysterically reading this book. This is another one that I feel like I need to reread it very soon. It's so good. And like the overall atmosphere of the circus, the whimsical nature of it, it's so beautiful. It's magical, it's whimsical. If you're looking for a circus element, this is definitely one to check out. So recommend that one. And then I also have The Weight of Feathers by Anna Marie McLemore. This is my favorite Anna Marie McLemore. I have not loved anything else that I've read by this author, but this one was 5 stars. And this has a carnival element to it. Our main character, this is like a Romeo and Juliet inspired romance fantasy, but with that carnival circus element. Our main character is a traveling performer, her and her family, and the other family they're also traveling performers, and so the 2 families are enemies, and of course she falls in love with a boy from the enemy family, and it's a whole thing. It's so beautiful. I just love the slightly magical element in here, and like as far as the traveling performance, the circus element, it is pretty strong in this one. So those are the ones I recommend for that. I am always on the lookout for a good circus carnival element because I'm always trying to recreate my experience of reading The Night Circus for the first time. Haven't found anything as good yet, but these are somewhere to start. The last one was Found Family in Fantasy, and I have 3 recommendations for you. The first one being Raybearer by Jordan Fueco. This is a very unique YA fantasy that just did everything right. Plus it's a duology, so you don't have to worry about getting started in a big series. The second book I didn't love, but this first book was incredible. So we're following a main character, Terasai, who was raised in isolation by this mysterious woman, and she, unbeknownst to her, has like magical wish compulsion inside of her, put there by her mother so that her mother could get revenge on the royal family. So the prince has this council of 11, and his council are connected by this magical thing called the Ray. They're able to, it makes them very close. They're able to like share thoughts and everything, and some of the relationships are romantic, but most of them are platonic, and they form like this beautiful found family unit together, and I loved it. I think this is one of the best examples of found family in my opinion, and the unique world and magic in here is also very interesting, and I highly recommend this book. We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. This is another one that has that found family element with the group of people that end up going on this sort of quest to break a magical curse, to find a specific magical object. At first they are like not interested in working together, but they end up working together and creating this bond with each other, and it's absolutely beautiful. This is like a desert fantasy where there's a curse on the land. Forest surrounding the land keeps creeping into the land year after year. It's so good. It's so good. Plus amazing characters that you will instantly fall in love with. A brooding prince, a very strong female main character who has to disguise herself as a man to hunt and protect the people she loves. It's great. And then we have Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is ultimate found family to me. We have a character named Kelsier who ends up recruiting the elite of the underground to pull off a impossible heist and take down someone who is impossible to take down. And the found family element in this book is everything. One of my favorite fantasy series of all time. That is it. Those were all the responses I got, so that was me answering all of your specific recommendations. I would love to do another recommendation video like this again, so if you have any more specific recommendations that you want, leave them down in the comments below, and maybe I'll do a part 2 to this video. But that's gonna be it. Talk to me down in the comments. Let me know what you thought about these recommendations. Let me know if you have any more recommendations, and if you want to leave me an emoji. Let's do emojis that are like Cottage Corp. I feel like we talked about that a lot in this video. Anything that makes you think of the Cottage Corp aesthetic as an emoji, leave it in the comments down below. That is going to be it for me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!